Why don't you tell the listeners what you're sitting in right now?
Yeah, so in my garage, so like I was saying, San Luis Obispo doesn't have like a lot of the houses in the area don't have central air, so AC really isn't a thing. Um,
I find that, by the way, like that's bizarre to me as somebody who lives in a northern climate where 6 months of the year is frozen solid here. Everybody has air conditioning. It does get really hot here in the summer, but I just can't imagine. But that's not the first place. I've heard of lots of places in the world, or even in
yeah,
North America, just don't have AC. They just hack out these hot summers with just like a fan.
yeah. I mean, it's like maybe like 1 week out of the year that it gets above 95, but like,
Okay.
it's I can understand it from like a energy saving standpoint.
Sure.
But yeah, so it kind of creates some interesting problems you kind of got to work around. So one thing that I really want to do, I guess I should backtrack. So right now we're in my garage. And I'm sitting in. I set up this. It's a 10 by 10 by 10 easy up tent. That's completely enclosed. It's got all like the zipper walls and stuff, circulating it, so it kind of keeps the air in. I also lined it with insulation foam board to kind of further, insulate it. Excuse me. And yeah, my goal with this was, so with Europlatus, it's important to not let the temperatures get too high. They are a species that can go downhill pretty fast if they're exposed to really high temperatures. So it's really important to just not have those, random peak heat kind of days that, when they roll through, you got to be able to battle that. Also, the heat from all the lighting definitely creates, some extra heat in here as well. So I guess my goal was to create um, a room where the temperatures would always be kind of where I want them. There are species that to breed, it's a good idea to cycle them throughout the year, give them exposure to cooler temperatures, like much cooler temperatures as well. And it's something that I wanted to be able to do all from one room. Also, not my bedroom. That was the biggest thing moving from the old place to this place is now I'm not sleeping in the same room as everything. Girlfriend had some choice opinions about that. So
And you don't have to put yourself through the climate swings as well.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, so yeah, it's a 10 by 10 by 10 easy up tent. All the walls are enclosed. Got the the insulation foam board, and then I guess for the equipment in here, I've got a kind of portable AC unit. Just one off of Amazon that's got an exhaust that I have going to one of the garage windows. I also have just a ton of fans in here, just constantly circulating the air. And my favorite addition as of recent has been this big old swamp cooler, which has done wonders for the humidity as well.
Yes, yeah.
Them
Swamp
being,
coolers are like, it's funny because when you stand in front of them, they don't feel like they're actually making the air much cooler, but the amount of humidity they throw off is insane.
absolutely, yeah. It's I don't really, I never really wanted to use like a fogger almost. I kind of worried about too much moisture kind of collecting in the area around it. Say if I had it on the floor, the for some reason they put carpet in this garage. So
Oh
that's
my God.
so that's something I gotta think about. And that moisture, that evaporative moisture, is kind of just going right into the air and not really collecting anywhere. Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
So does your garage get hot? Because I think about my garage. Again, we have air conditioning where I am, but my garage doesn't. It's not connected to the ventilation. So on a hot day, it'll be, 40, 45 degrees Celsius in there. It'll get really warm. Does your garage, is it warm on the outside of the tent on those hot days?
yes, yeah, it definitely is. It can get mid 80s up to mid 90s on those freak days as well. So that was another thing, is that it's with that insulation, it's able to keep a lot of that bad air out.
So that's actually worked on those hot days, being inside the
Mhm.
tent in the insulation with the AC running inside the tent has actually been able to thwart off any of the additional heat from being
Yeah,
inside a hot garage.
yeah, it sets me back, a really gnarly energy bill, but it works. So I got that.
I'm
And it
guessing you
keeps
don't
all the
split your electrical bill three ways with your
I
roommates.
have it worked out with the roommates, thankfully.
Yeah.
I kind of calculated it, and then I have like some like one of those smart plugs hooked into the AC unit, so I can kind of track how much it runs
Okay.
over the course of a month, and I kind of calculated it out, and then I kind of add some on for my roommates putting up with all this shit. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They give you a whole room, and then you're running the energy bill through the roof. But
yeah, from
so,
the garage.
how do you use the AC? Do you just set it to like 75, or what do you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, no, I pretty much set it to 75 and it kind of does the job. It I guess ambient it'll range. So it does kind of drop. The temperatures do drop at night once the lights are off, everything's off. The temperatures definitely drop into the mid 60s. So I do have like a little heater in here as well to kind of keep it 69 or 68 at night. Um even if it gets cooler on the outside. Um so I do have that as well. Um But yeah.
Well, as you're thinking there, I'm curious. A, where did you get this idea? That's my first question.
Yeah. I guess maybe I was a little bit inspired by the Zoom Ed greenhouse a little bit.
Hmm.
And how they're kind of be able to keep everything in like one enclosed building and modulate the temperatures in there. Um, and and yeah, I you know one thing that I do as well is I keep all my animals in screen enclosures.
Hmm.
Um, I originally came upon that kind of keeping strategy, um, from the chameleon people and stuff. And when applying it to Europlatus, I was like, I was trying to think like this is a species that needs to be kept cooler, but also humid. And a lot of the times that combination can lead to respiratory infections in other species and lead to bacteria and all that. You're basically creating the perfect environment for mold. So I wanted to, try and provide the healthiest environment I could, which is kind of why I chose to do like a almost like a um, kind of treat the general air versus treating each individual enclosure.
Yeah, it's sort of it reminds me of having a small fish tank attached to like a large sump filter. So you're controlling a lot more water volume and cleaning a lot more water and having more control over the environment because of the size. So you're putting smaller enclosures in effectively a larger enclosure. Like the tent is basically an enclosure itself. So you can just treat the air like you said, and the screen. That's what's really great about screen enclosures is they're going to increase the ventilation. You're not going to run into any of the stagnant air issues. And we'll talk more about the Eurocare in a little bit, but I'm trying to remember. I think I had someone on the podcast. I think it might have been Dr. Koch. Now I'm trying to remember, but he's a vet and he was talking about Europlatus having issues with basically just dropping dead. And I don't know if you've heard of this, and I want to say it was like a fungal thing or some sort of disease that hits that genus harder than other genus. And I wonder if maybe having more ventilation and more airflow in general would help for that. I don't know if that rings a bell at all for you.
Not particularly, but what I will say is that this is a species that will basically kind of position themselves and perch on one specific location throughout the entire day. And if that location is super wet and muggy and like the surfaces are super wet, them being pressed up against that surface can certainly lead to bacteria kind of forming. In some of the species they have these really elaborate kind of folds and formations of skin that can certainly be like a little kind of bacteria trap as well.
For sure, yeah.
So being able to keep the surfaces dry but the air humid so they don't dehydrate throughout the course of the day nearly as much as they would otherwise.
I think this is a really cool solution. I mean, I'm sort of surprised I've not seen people do this more often. I mean, we talk about the reptile room being an effective way to maintain enclosures because you have more control over your room, but you don't have as much control over a room as you might think because you have your people opening doors in and out and the ventilation of the house or the building is going to be interrupting that airflow, and there's only so much you can do in a room. But when
not only that is that with high humidity species as well, you're basically creating the recipe for mold, and you're going to break
exactly.
down. You're gonna get some black mold behind cages if you're not careful. So
yeah, totally. You're making a toxic environment for you and the animals. So so do you? I guess because you don't have, I mean, you said there's carpet on the floor and whatnot, but you're not worried about mold just because there's really no surface that it could grow on, I guess, because it's
pretty much
like basically plastic
it's
walls.
disconnected from all the walls. The only surface that it's kind of in contact with the greater part of the house is the carpet and the floor. So I have all the cages, all like the bottom of the racks like lined with like painter's plastic. So any water that kind of drips out of the enclosures, it kind of, it doesn't really hit the carpet. It'll
Sure.
evaporate off that surface before it has a chance to kind of go down into the carpet. And it doesn't smell, super like
Like musty or anything?
yeah, musty or doesn't smell weird in here at all, which is really nice. So
Yeah. Can you tell us? So we've kind of built the picture as a 10 by 10 tent. Can you tell us what's in there? I mean, as far as how many enclosures you have some baker's racks, it looks like, as far as, what you stacked up there.
yeah. Um, I guess my one gripe with all the glass enclosures is how not Baker Rat compatible they are. So that was something that ate me all through kind of my reptile keeping journey, I guess. So once I switched to the screen enclosures, a lot of them are like 16 inches wide, so they fit really, really nicely on Baker racks. So I did outfit like the whole room with Baker racks. Um, and yeah, I'm trying to look around
Do you have
here.
three? Is it three, like a back wall and the side wall?
So all the walls are pretty much covered in Baker racks.
Okay. So you have like a little
It's
door for yourself?
Yeah, there's a little like zip up door in the side over here, and that's the only area that's not covered by racks or by AC units. Um, so yeah, there must be, let's see, two, four, maybe 30 enclosures in here.
Okay. Yeah. So it's quite a lot. And they're all screened pretty much?
Yeah, they're all going to be screen enclosures. I have a couple Rhino Rat displays that aren't screened. They're like sliding glass
Okay.
enclosures, um, and that's the only exception in here.
And then I think we've covered a lot of the benefits. I think the benefits are pretty clear. Are there any downsides that you've experienced so far? I know you've been running this for a couple of months now, I think. Is there some things that because you're just at the early beginning phase of your reptile career, this is probably one of those ideas that you're going to continue to develop in the next decade or so. Do
Yeah.
you already have ideas of how, when you tackle this again, what you'll change?
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, that's a good question. Um, I guess the one thing that that is kind of prohibitive is um the floor. Like I think the next generation of this kind of setup, I definitely want to have it over like a concrete floor. So I can kind of just forego um having to cover it and worry about it. That way, I can just blast those sprayers and do some auto misting systems and not have to worry about kind of all the drippage and stuff too.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is that with the Reptiries or the screen enclosures in general, that they're just not the most watertight. So when you have auto sprayers, sometimes kind of water gets out, it can seep through the cracks and stuff and it drips out. And I guess that's the one drawback right now that I've been kind of experiencing is just having
Is it
to.
basically like a house carpet that's on the floor, like what you'd experience in a
It's
living
like
room?
it's like a really thin carpet. It's nothing like nice or anything, but it is like it's it's really thin. So like you if you fell on it, it hurt
Yeah, so it's
kind of
more like an
thing.
indoor outdoor type carpet,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I guess that's the one drawback. Um, and I think, I guess improvements I'd like to make is just I think more air circulation right now. I kind of have like those column fans that kind of twist
Yeah.
and kind of blow air. I think I have two of them in here right now. They're both set to like the wind mode. I just like to get like one in every single corner, and just have like the air just in a constant circle. I think that'd be super sweet.
Well, and a lot of these
Um,
animals that you keep are coastal animals or island, basically animals that live on an island, and they're experiencing a lot of wind and a lot of airflow and a lot of fresh air constantly. So I
mhm.
think that would be probably pretty beneficial.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. With Europlasts, there are kind of little minute niches and stuff and little temperature differences. Some animals experience, more night drops and stuff than others. So finding a way to honestly the solution for this would probably just be, build another tent. But um kind of as the collection progresses, maybe I make a tent for a different section of the island and put all the, animals from that specific section kind of in that tent. And then kind of keep areas from another or animals from another locality in a different tent and kind of have it sectionalized like that.
How cold do you think you could make the tent if you just blasted the AC? Like, could you drop it down to 60?
Oh, I mean, I don't. You're really just you're. It's as cold as that AC unit, can go. I want to say the AC units can code down to like 68. I want to say
Okay.
is the range. It's like 68 to 70. Not. it's somewhere within that range. I don't think you can get much colder than that, but I kind of let just like the natural nighttime temperature drops of the area kind of control it a bit too.
Sure. Yeah,
And kind of, I don't really try and fight nature too hard, especially with with temperatures and stuff. And I try and kind of stay within the within an easy to control range, I guess.
Yeah. Just keep it within a band that makes sense. And
Yeah.
and the biggest thing is you have increased the airflow, the air volume, probably like 1,000 times or something remarkable like that, because you're in this large kind of cube that has this like its own air supply. So I think it's a really, really cool idea. Because I was just talking to somebody who's also in California and one of the regular listeners, and he lives more south where it gets real hot, and he was asking about keeping cooler species and how he might manage that on those days where you're getting into the hundreds outside and 90s inside type thing. And I think you wouldn't do this for one gecko, but this is a concept that I think people could work on to help keep cooler species.
Yeah. I mean, so I think just compare it to keeping indoors, I guess, it's the humidity aspect that really differentiates it. If you want to keep cool species, then your portable AC units can definitely help out in a room. I know some people that kind of run their living rooms off these portable AC units, and they work, pretty well. So I guess that's my number one recommendation. But if you want to meet that humidity requirement as well, then yeah, something like this would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Europlatus, because I think they are probably one of the coolest genus of gecko. And maybe this will be very subjective, but if you were to ask non-reptile people, that would be something that sticks out all the time because of just how incredible they are, and all the different species underneath that genus.